Burnout is real. Stress is real. What does this look like? It looks different for so many different people. Stress management can truly come from so many different sources. You hear people use the terminology stress and burnout sometimes in the same breath. They are very much two different things. You feel different sometimes. Sometimes the symptoms do feel the same, but you know when you're stressed versus when you're just truly burned out. Employees in some professions do have a higher degree of stress simply due to the nature of what they do. And so you might find that individuals that are in one profession are a bit more stressed out than individuals that are in another profession. How we deal with that stress or how we deal with that burnout is truly key. Taking the time to identify the stressors and really developing a plan, we can introduce or reduce, the short and the long-term impacts of chronic stress. Share with me in the chat, like, how do you, or what are some of the things that you do in order to reduce stress or burnout? So breathe. Absolutely. I understand and I can appreciate that. Exercising, taking a day to sleep, protecting my time. Whew, I love that. Protecting my time away from work and prioritizing time with family. I love, love, love that. When I get home on Fridays, I take a long shower to transition to the weekend. That does a few things, right? It allows you to truly acknowledge the things that you do, right? Sitting in that space to say, man, like, let me pat myself on the back. I'm doing an amazing job. And then for those that still are struggling with, I know I've got to do better with these things. It also helps you say, okay, I didn't really have anything in this moment to type out or put in the chat because I know that is something that I've personally got to work through and on. What are some additional things that we can do to address stress, to prevent burnout? So why is this field so prone to high stress and burnout? The AMA Wire identified 7 signs that correlate with burnout. So notice we've shifted from talking about stress and now we've moved into just burnout. And so a pre-existing high tolerance to stress. Stress leads to burnout, especially if we're not addressing those feelings, if we're not really dealing with an exceptionally chaotic practice, disagreement with a boss, values or leadership, having to function as an emotional buffer for your coworker, job interference with family events, lack of control over work schedule and free time and not taking time for self-care. A lot of times we are moving at such a rapid pace. We are trying to get so many things done. We are stretching ourselves thin. We're overcommitting that we don't take the time to always listen to our bodies, right? We don't always take the time to say, okay, like, let's have a moment where I can acknowledge how I'm feeling. And so I'm going to just simply challenge you to sit still, right? Have those moments where you can prioritize you and what does that really look like? So we're moving at such a rapid pace. We're trying to make sure we get various things done in a matter of a day that we don't always schedule just maybe it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes just to say, I just need to be, right? I've got meetings back to back. As soon as my feet hit the floor, I'm going. And so I'm going to challenge you to find a time or a period in a day or days throughout the week that you can just simply schedule 10 minutes here and there, right? Just to decompress and say, I know how I'm feeling. And so instead of me piling on top of this feeling, I'm just going to take a moment and take that moment where you don't necessarily have to do anything, but just to be. And I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. And what does that mean? Like, you've got to fill yourself up so that you can ensure that you're able to effectively do your job, so that you can effectively continue to pour into other people. And so you cannot pour from an empty cup. Someone said, I am curious as to how to manage staff who I feel are burning out. The biggest thing that I would say is, are you having conversations with? We find that our staff are so stressed or burned out, but we don't stop to really ask the questions. Simply have kind of that one-on-one time to say, how are you feeling? I want to create a safe space for you because I've noticed some differences in your behavior. You might very well just be tired, and I want to make sure that we're saving this space for you to address those things. And a lot of times we miss the mark, not because we're bad leaders, but because we're moving so quickly that we don't stop to ask the questions, or we're afraid to ask the questions because we feel like we're primed, but we're not. And so what I'm going to challenge you to do is, if you feel like your staff is burned out, just simply have a conversation. And so you doing that, it kind of opens up the door for your staff to feel like, oh, you thought of me enough to ask how I was doing. The other thing that I would do is I would encourage time. As organizations, as companies, as businesses, we offer time off, but our folks don't always take it because they're worried about, when I leave, somebody else is going to have to pull up the workload, or when I get back, I'm going to have so much more work. So encouraging your people to take time off. So those are the two things, the couple of things that I would truly know, because having someone talk to me and acknowledge that they see that I'm burned out, it means so much more than anything else. And so I would start there. I want to share a quick story with you. Some people, they ignore the signs. And it happened in December of last year, but like it just happened last weekend. I knew that I was burned out, but I kept going. When we train, it's like, okay, we love to talk about it, but we don't always do a good job with practicing it. And so I remember I was this weekend, I had it all planned out. I was going to get up on Saturday and go work out, go run some errands, and then, come back home and relax. And it was probably about 10 o'clock a.m. And I recognized, like, I'm tired. So I'm going to just lay here for a little bit. I'll still get up and go and work out. I looked up and my husband probably woke me up it might have been 2 o'clock. And I felt horrible because, of course, my children were here and they were like, well, mommy's not up yet. But when I finally got up, and it was probably closer to 4, when I finally got up, and I just looked at my spouse and said, I was so tired. And he said, that's why I didn't bother you. And I knew in that moment, like, something has to change. And you can't keep running on fumes, raising your hand, doing X, Y, and Z, but we do that. How many of us do that? Like, how many of us will say, okay, I'm going to rest this weekend. Oh, I look forward to Saturday because I can kind of sleep in a little bit. But then we keep piling it on and saying, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. And I want you to either write down or I want you to type out, whichever is easiest for you. But what is your commitment to yourself to put better boundaries in place in order to eliminate some of the burnout feelings and stressful feelings? What is your commitment to yourself to try and eliminate some of those things or even to help with some of them?